I thought I'd just do a little video talking about the future of YouTube, or specifically the future of this channel on YouTube, in light of the way that we're seeing AI impact content creation. And there's a couple of sort of lines of thinking that I'm going to explore. But also, I've just done a bunch of videos looking at vibe coding and sort of how I use AI to make software. And of course, we're seeing this rise of the use of AI for coding throughout the industry. And a lot of people, I think, are quite put off by that, and they see that as a real negative and are just sort of blanket rejecting any sort of AI input into coding. And I do totally get that. I'm absolutely behind it now. I love vibe coding. I think it's incredible to see the sort of amplification of my skill set in terms of how fast I can actually get stuff done now with AI. I see this as a huge positive, but I do absolutely understand the resistance to it. In fact, I remember the first time when ChatGPT was first released, and my reaction, I felt that reaction. I remember feeling that same thing, that kind of, I don't want to know about this. I remember that feeling distinctly, that I'm gonna shut my eyes to this. I didn't want to embrace this. I didn't want this to be any part of my life. I couldn't visualize a future with it. Which I think is a perfectly understandable reaction when you see something that has the potential to replace you. And that's this first kind of response to something that powerful. But we've been here before in human history. We've had several technological sort of injections that have displaced jobs and replaced people to all intents and purposes. We've seen it in agriculture. There was a point in human history when most people would work the land to make the food, and then those jobs were replaced by machinery. So we moved into cities and started doing other things. But of course, the reality is that those other things increased our total productivity. So every time this has happened in human history, it has been a benefit. And of course, the same thing happened with like domestic products and washing machines and stuff, helped women leave the domestic environment and enter the workforce, so again, increasing our overall productivity. And I think obviously there is an argument to be made that this is happening faster than we've ever seen it before now, and that is going to make it harder to adapt. We're seeing people who will be replaced in their job roles within their own career, whereas before you could perhaps sort of see it change on a generational time frame. So I think my personal take, and this is optimistic, I'm generally very optimistic about everything. So, feel free to pop a comment in and say if you see this in a different light. From my take on this, certainly from my personal experience, what it's done for me, it's let me be more productive. I'm producing more of what I love doing. I'm doing more of what I love doing. I'm doing less of what I don't like doing. The boring elements of coding, AI just does that for me now. So I'm happier in my job. I'm working longer hours than ever as a result of that sort of reduction in fatigue that you get from the boring elements of a job. That has let me do more work by hours. But then that's multiplied even more so by the actual performance output increase from using AI in itself. But as a result, our business is growing faster than ever before. So hopefully the idea is that this can happen through all of the sectors. We're just running a little bit more efficiently and relying that bit less on actual sort of labor hours, human hours. Obviously, there is this big picture idea that if all these businesses are able to do the same thing with less manpower, what do all those other people do? But of course, actually, if you look at that through an optimistic lens, what that is more opportunities. It's more opportunities for more businesses to provide more specific tailored services for more niche audiences. And we've seen this kind of trend in social media, like the way this plays out with YouTube. So, if you go back sort of 20 years ago, you'd have celebrity influencers and they would have a voice through traditional media channels, and there would be quite a small number of those and everyone would kind of follow them. Whereas now with social media, we see this massive kind of focusing on niches. You've got individual people with their own individual audiences and they're in their own niches. This is going to happen with businesses as a result of this increase in efficiency, the way I see it. More businesses will exist tailoring to more specific niche audiences in the same way that we've seen happen with social media, which of course has been fueled by AI in those technologies as well. So that's my optimistic take on sort of civilization at a societal level with AI. In terms of this channel, in terms of content creation, I think we're seeing AI have a huge influence on content creation. You can get AI to make a script in detail with well-researched points and everything in no time at all. So clearly we will see lots of people generating scripts, putting them on teleprompters and just making content. And that is the thing that scares me the most, because I got so close to doing the same kind of thing. I've experimented with teleprompters on and off on this channel. And sort of a few videos back, just at the start of the vibe coding series, I was doing a couple of teleprompter videos again, and I got excited by how fast it was to make a video. I could just do it almost in real time, just reading off the teleprompter. But a few weeks passed, and I look back at those videos. I don't see me talking. I just see a face reading it, and that element of YouTube, I think, is going to get sort of swamped. There's going to be a sea of this, and people are going to crave more authenticity. This is something I'm finding as a viewer on YouTube more and more. I'm resonating more with the people that are just talking to camera. Mark Waters represents this perfectly, and it just sort of everything he says resonated with me when I was watching his channel, and I realized that's what I must do on this channel. So no more teleprompters. That's it now. I know I've said this a couple of times and doubled back on it and gone back to it. This is it now. It's very simple to see that AI plus people reading things from teleprompters is so easy to achieve. In terms of differentiating yourself from competition, you have to not be doing that. So I'm just going to keep working on this. I'm going to keep getting better at talking off the cuff to camera with no teleprompter, no script. In that, I think this is a more authentic way of talking, and hopefully that comes across. And I think from my perspective as a viewer of other channels, I value that more now, just to be able to have that real connection, that authentic, relatable connection with real humans, And this extends through to some key technical points as well. We're seeing AI backgrounds a lot. So people, AI can just replace your background, and, it can match the lighting and generate a scene that works with the lighting on your face and all of this. And of course, it's very clever, but it's another step just away from a real person in real life. And I think it's so important that we sort of seek that reality, that real life thing. And I know there's a big philosophical point, like, what if you can't tell the difference anymore? What if these AI backgrounds get so convincing that if we can't even tell, what is the point? And that applies to all AI content and sort of representations of ourselves. Like, if AI can make a video that looks just like this video, how will we ever tell, and so on. So I think we're going to have to kind of keep an eye on that. Like, what clues are we going to seek in the future to prove that something is genuine? So we've got this situation where we're going to potentially need more and more actual signals to prove that something is real. And of course, that does beg this question. If you need a separate way of proving if something is real, then what is the problem with the stuff that isn't real? Like this. I mean, this applies to all kinds of these philosophical discussions about virtual existence and the matrix idea. And, if we just plugged into a simulation, would we be happy? And, all these kinds of ideas. We are going to have to explore these themes. And I think the more signals that you get from a creator that they are real and authentic, the better. I think this is just something that is going to be surfaced as where the real value lies with YouTube as we move into the future. Hopefully, I may be wrong. Maybe the algorithm will just reward the AI content, and the people that really value that authenticity will just be left kind of wanting something else, and maybe that will open an opportunity for another product, another platform. We'll have to sort of see. I kind of hope and I kind of trust that YouTube will do what it's always done and try and create those connections between real people and surface the authentic stuff, because it generally is quite good at that. But there are all these other businesses and technologies trying to push products on you that will do stuff like make your eyes look centrally at the lens to hide the fact that you're reading a teleprompter. And I think those kinds of things are just like, when you think about how insidious that is and how sort of anti-authenticity that is as a way of making content, it just makes me want to really resist that more than ever. So that's my commitment. Off the cuff videos, teleprompters. I'm going to edit. I'm still going to edit them. I think I experimented with off the cuff videos, and I was going to do the one take thing. And I think a lot of those turned into sort of lacking a little bit in information density. So I'm still going to edit to try and keep that information density up. I don't see a problem with that. Editing has always been a kind of creative process that we've done well before the era of AI, and it's simply about respect for time. That's the way I see it. This isn't sort of going towards artificial content. So I'm happy with that. But the teleprompter line is a line in the sand for me. And of course, if you make videos with teleprompters, don't. This is just my take on this, And then an interesting thing happened the other day. I put a YouTube post on the channel here. And I ran it through AI to spell check. And I've always found, I made this point, that AI is actually a really good spell check, better than any kind of operating system level spell check, which has no context awareness and it's just not reliable enough. But if you put the whole piece of text into AI, it can do a fantastic job of spell checking. But because I did this in an AI app in a web browser, it actually didn't just, I wasn't clear enough with the prompt that I only wanted it spell checked. It changed a couple of words, and it changed agentic to AGI, which of course has a completely different meaning. And I didn't spot it, and I posted it. And the irony is, of course, this was a post about AI. And so, I didn't delete it. I left it there. I fixed it. I put it back to agentic, which is what I pasted in the first place. And I acknowledged it in the comments that this is kind of ironic and pretty funny. So that, a little bit of a flag. I don't actually use AI to generate posts or text. I do write them. Sometimes I've used AI to tune it. And I think this is now something that, on reflection, I want to move away from absolutely again. Any text or post on any social media platform, I want to make sure I've written myself. And anything above and beyond kind of spelling, grammar correction, I think I'm going to reject. I think this is an important thing. And I think hopefully that will be a good signal for authenticity in the sort of online space as we move into this AI era where everything is going to be AI generated. We're going to lose that voice. So this video is really just my commitment to authenticity on this channel as we move into this AI era. Hopefully you will value this as well. And even though I'm a proponent of AI in many areas and in vibe coding and all of this, I hope that you can see that I'm just trying to draw my own line in a reasonable place here. And obviously, as we move into this AI era, we are all going to have to draw our own lines as to where we find it acceptable to see AI. And there's certainly lots of things, lots of areas where we do want to reject AI. We have to be very careful, I think, with governments using AI against us. But then even that is a nuanced discussion. One of the points that comes up on a couple of channels I follow, we have in the UK, we have these cameras, AI cameras that look down through your windscreen to see if you're texting. And the response on YouTube is negative to these. Like people are happier to be thinking there are people texting and driving on the roads than they are to think that we can use AI cameras to stop them. I think this is just one of those things. We're going to have to use the responsibility. Like clearly an AI camera targeted very specifically. And, as long as it doesn't do anything else like sneaky overlap data collection in other areas and then sold on and all those kinds of things, that's what we want to be careful with. In principle, if a system can catch people texting and driving, and it just does that, there's a specific law against that, it finds them and it deals with them, then I see that as a good thing. This is a catastrophic situation that we're seeing. And, all you've got to do is whack on some polarizing sunglasses. And as you glance at the drivers driving you, I reckon it's about 1 in 10 are looking down at their phone. I had a van drive past me the other day, and he was just literally on his phone looking down from the whole time I saw him looking down till he was actually passed. It was luck, not judgment, that he didn't hit my car. Maybe there was some peripheral idea. If someone stepped out in front of him, he wouldn't have seen them. So I see AI used for those kinds of purposes to be perfectly legitimate and something we should be doing. But it can then be pushed too far by those governments, of course. And at the point it sort of starts to collect data on us and our political opinions and all of this and categorizing us and all of these kinds of things, that's the line we want to reject. This is, again, just me drawing the lines. But I do think this is going to be a very interesting era where we're going to have to think about this. It's not enough just to say AI equals bad, because we're going to throw the baby out with the bathwater there. And, there is a nuance, there is a discussion, there is clear benefits that this technology is going to bring us, but it has the huge power to be misused against us as well. So I think ultimately that's why this stuff is so important to keep discussing and keep talking about.